Oh, how's it going, everybody? So here we are, back for another edition of All In, where I'll pick a rock artist or a band, and I'll listen to the entire discography and give my thoughts on it. So the rules kind of go like this. The band in question must have 5 or more original studio albums. Cover albums can count. And I generally don't talk about live or acoustic albums unless the tracks themselves are original to that form. So, here we go. So, in case you haven't guessed by the title, we're doing a very legendary band that started off in the 90s. We're going to do Foo Fighters. That's right. So, they have a span of 11 original studio albums. This doesn't include side projects or live albums, just original studio albums. Doesn't even include EPs either. So we have their self-titled album, Foo Fighters, from 1995 as their debut, all the way up to, but here we are, from 2023, just 2 years ago. So yeah, they've been very busy just within the Foo Fighters in that amount of time. But before we really get into the meat of this video, we can't do Foo Fighters without mentioning Nirvana, obviously. You know, as you guys know, Dave Grohl was a drummer over there, and of course, Nirvana hit their peak success. I mean, grunge as a whole hit its peak success in 1994, and then that's when Kurt Cobain sort of deleted himself, and that was the end of that with Nirvana. But yeah, I figure we'll do that honorable mention a while because Nirvana came first. So I have a lot of their stuff. I'm not going to do an all-in with them because I don't have enough. They didn't have enough studio albums to make the cut, but I'll just give a brief mention anyway. So yeah, so in '89 they start off with Bleach, and not really too well known at the time it came out. I mean, '89 we're still like in the peak of hair bands at this point. That's before the hair band bubble popped, I guess. But yeah, I mean, honestly, a pretty good album. Check it out. And then, of course, yeah, this is like one of those albums that's like an essential to any rock collection. And to tell you how far back I go with that one, I know we're not scripted. I'm just kind of reaching my shelf here. Oh, where it? Of course, it's in the back. Ah, here it is. Yeah, I bought this in 6th grade. That's right, that's how far back I go with this. And then, of course, we move on to Incesticide, which it's really not a studio album, but it's more of like an album with like outtakes and alternates. But I mean, all in all, not bad. And of course, their last original studio album, In Utero, that's the one that has like heart-shaped box and All Apologies. Not bad at all. And of course, though it's not a studio album per se, Unplugged in New York, very popular, and released the year he died. And this is where I think the most famous track on that one was About a Girl. They played the hell out of that song on the radio. But okay, enough about Nirvana. So obviously, Nirvana pretty much split up after the death of Kurt Cobain, and Dave Grohl the very next year starts off in his little side project, and we end up with the Foo Fighters. So here we are, the next year, 1995. The first album, Foo Fighters. So right off, we start off with This Is a Call, which is like fingernails. That's a good song. You got I'll Stick Around, Big Me, all 3 of those good songs. You got Alone Easy Target, Good Grief, Floaty, Weenie Beanie, Oh George, For All the Guns, Ecstatic, Watershed, and Exhausted. And this album right here is, I call this their most grunge album out of the whole library. Like, it just kind of carried that whole era right there, Or they carried on with the whole era. And then, of course, if you got one of the later copies, you got some bonus tracks there. Like, let's see here. So you got, Winnebago, Pond Duck, and Oh I Miss You, if you got the bonuses. This obviously doesn't have that, so... That's the only Foo Fighters album I actually have on physical, believe it or not. So then we move on to 1997, The Color and the Shape. Yes, they still have a grunge sound, but they were kind of more evolving to the mainstream, I guess, at this point. But here we start off with the intro, Doll, and then of course Monkey Wrench, which I feel is a pretty grungy song. You got Hey Johnny Park, My Poor Man, Wind Up, Up in Arms. The real popular track, My Hero, great song. We got See You, Enough Space, February Stars, Everlong, which was real popular, Walking After You, and New Way Home. And definitely a great follow-up to their debut for sure. It's definitely worth mentioning the My Hero single, which came out in '98. They did a lot of rare covers on this one, almost damn near like EP length. So here you got Requiem, which Killing Joke originally did. You got Drive Me Wild, which was Vanity 6. You got Down in the Park, which was Gary Newman. And yeah, Marilyn Manson also covered that song around this time. And then the very popular cover, Baker Street, which was Gary Rafferty. Love that cover. I would dare to say that this is like a top 10 favorite cover that I've ever heard. And of course they do an acoustic version of See You and For All the Cows live. So I do love like a lot of the, they did a lot of rarities that didn't make the albums. So 1999 we have There Is Nothing Left to Lose. And definitely a good third album for sure. So we start off with Stacked Actors and Breakout, Learn to Fly, all three of them great songs. I like Breakout the best, I think. They still definitely have that grunge sound in those first two tracks for sure. You got Give Me Stitches, Generator, Aurora, Living Skin, Next Year, Headwires, Ain't My Life, and MIA, and if you get the bonus, Fertility, or Fraternity. Boy, did I read that wrong. But yeah, I definitely like Stacked Actors and Breakout. Definitely two great tracks off that album. And then, Learn to Fly, that one really got... I would say that's their most commercially successful track off of this, for sure. So, since we're kind of around that time, we move on to around 2000. I gotta give this album an honorable mention. Maybe I mentioned it on the Metallica and Limp Bizkit videos. But they did a cover of Have a Cigar by Pink Floyd, with Brian May as guest. And I didn't like it as much as the original, but I mean, not a bad take on it, honestly. So, moving along, we move on, since we're in the millennium now, we move on to 2002. And here they start to get a little more, mainstream and alternative. At this point, grunge was pretty much done. The closest thing you had at this point was maybe, people might call it post-grunge or butt rock. Kind of the more mainstream rock that's not nu metal. Even though, nu metal was a thing at this time. But I feel like they really held their own in this era, for sure. So, we start off with All My Life, Low. Definitely two great singles off of this. We have It All, Times Like These, another good one. Disenchanted Lullaby, Tired of You, Halo, Lonely As You, Overdrive, Burn Away, Come Back. And if you get the bonus tracks, you have Danny Says by the Ramones. But yeah, I feel like All My Life, they were sort of holding on to the grunge thing even in that track. So it's kind of cool that they were, still going back to their roots, but at the same time they were sort of evolving, into what was current at the time, I guess. So then, moving on to 2005, we have ourselves a double album. So yeah, like I said, they were freaking busy. So what we got here, we start off with In Your Honor, we have No Way Back, Best of You, which could almost be the biggest track of this album. You have DOA, you got Hail, the last song, Free Ride, we got Resolve, The Deepest Blues Are Black, End Over End. So then we move on to disc 2, which it's acoustic, but it's original tracks in acoustic. So yeah, we could talk about these. So we got Still, What If I Do, Miracle, Another Round, Friend of a Friend, Over and Out, On the Mend, Virginia Moon, Cold Day in the Sun, and Razor. And if you get the bonus track, you got The Sign. And no, that's not an Ace of Base cover. Although, it would sound weird if they covered Ace of Base. But, yeah, as we get later on into the video here, they're definitely going to do some he's going to do some, like, odd covers and collabs. But stay tuned for that, in case you haven't really heard the whole discography. So, 2006, they did Skin and Bones, which, it's not a studio album, it's a live album, so we're not really going to talk too awful much about it. Just mentioning it, throwing it out there. But 2007, we move on to Echo, Silence, and Patience and Grace. And here we get The Pretender, really popular song off of that. Then you have Let It Die, which is also another popular one. Erase, Replace, we got Long Road to Ruin, Come Alive, Stronger Things Have Happened, Cheer Up Boys, You're Making Up This Running, or Your Makeup is Running. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think I got it now. You got Summer's End, even though it's not a single, I like that one. Summer's End is sort of like that, it sort of has that ballad feel to it a little bit. You got Ballad of Beaconsfield Miners, Statues, But Honestly, and Home. So then we move on. 2009, they roll out their greatest hits compilation. And yeah, why I'm going to mention this one, they did a couple of originals off of this. You know, like a lot of bands do. They'll release the greatest hits and put a new track or two on it. You know, just to sell it, I guess. So here, this one generates the single "Wheels," which came out in September of 2009, I should say. Of course, you got like all the essentials of Foo Fighters at this point. Oh, they do include "Have a Cigar," which I just mentioned earlier from the Mission Impossible soundtrack. Oh, they did a cover of "Band on the Run" by Paul McCartney, which was pretty good. It was I guess it was like a Radio 1 exclusive over in Britain. But yeah, not a bad cover there. But yeah, if you're just starting off on Foo Fighters, don't really have their whole discography, it's definitely a good compilation for sure. Covers all the basics. So here we go, turn of the decade. We're in the 2010s now. So 2011 we get Wasting Light. And so what we got here is Bridge Burning, Rope, which is pretty good. Dear Rosemary, White Limo, which kicks ass. Love that song. Orlandia, These Days, Back and Forth, A Matter of Time, Miss the Misery, Should I Have Known, and the song Walk, and No, Not by Pantera. And then if you get the bonus track, you get Better Off. And I feel like a lot of the songs on this are a little bit heavier. Like, they started to really get heavier here in this decade, I feel. And then they did a compilation called Medium Rare. So what they did here is they sort of compiled like a best of the B-sides, I guess you could call it. So it's got like a lot of the rarities on it, which I'm sure I've already mentioned most of them anyway. I'm surprised it doesn't have Baker Street though. Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It has Baker Street. And yeah, it also has Have a Cigar. Let's see, it has I Feel Free, which was a Cream cover. Band on the Run, which I did mention earlier. You got Young Man Blues, which was Mose Allison. You got Bad Reputation, which was a Thin Lizzy cover. Yeah, definitely some good stuff on there. Some good rare stuff if you like rarities. So then we move on to 2014. So a little over 10 years ago, we get Sonic Highways. And so here, this is a real short album. So you get Something from Nothing. Then you get The Feast and the Feminine. The Feast and the Femine. And it looks like I see what they did here. They did a lot of guests in this album. So yeah, you got Rick Nielsen in the first track. You got Peter Stahl in the second track. Then you got Congregation with Zach Brown. You got What I Do, God Is My Witness with Gary Clark Jr. Outside with Joe Walsh and was it Chris Goss? Chris Goss. Yeah, I think I got that right. You got In the Clear with Preservation Hall Jazz Band. You got is it Subterranean? Yeah, Subterranean with Ben Gibbard, and then we end it with I Am the River with Tony Visconti and Christine Young. So then we move on to 2015. They did an EP called Saint Cecilia. And what's kind of weird about this EP is they were giving it away for free on Amazon. Like, you could, I don't know if you could still do it now, but you could go on there and download the whole thing for free, which is what I did a long time ago. So here we get the title track to it called Saint Cecilia. Very good track. You got Sean, you got Save Your Breath. You got Iron Rooster and the Never Ending Sigh. So I guess it was sort of like a promotional thing, you know, that the fact they were giving it away online. So then we have 2017's Concrete and Gold, the next full album they did here. So what do we got? So here we start off with the intro t-shirt. Then you have Run, which was a really good single. You got Make It Right, The Sky Is a Neighborhood, love that track. La Di Da, Dirty Water, Arrows, Happy Ever After, 0 Hour, Sunday Rain, you got The Line, and we end with Concrete and Gold. And all in all, they've been real solid like throughout all their career. Like, they're a band that never really faded into obscurity. Alright, so here we are into the 2020s, and they're still going strong. So, 2021 brings us Medicine at Midnight. And they've been keeping the album short and sweet here the past couple here. So you have Making a Fire, you got Shame Shame, which is real good. You got Cloud Spotter, Waiting for a War, love that one. Medicine at Midnight, No Son of Mine, another good one. You got Holding Poison, Chasing Birds, Love Dies Young. Definitely a very solid effort, at least this time around. And then we end it with 2023's But Here We Are. And here again, another short and sweet album, just 10 tracks long, 48 minutes. You got Rescued, Under You, Hearing Voices, But Here We Are, title track. The Glass, Nothing at All, Show Me How, Beyond Me, The Teacher, and Rest. Yeah, Rescued, that was definitely a damn good way to start the album. Definitely a good track. I also like the title track, But Here We Are. I don't know how that wasn't a single, but I feel like that was the highlight track of that whole album. But that was just their original discography. I gotta give a couple of honorable mentions here at the end. So, also in 2021, they did a little project called DGs. So, it was sort of a compilation. They got together with the Bee Gees and redid some of the Bee Gees songs. So, it's kind of an odd album. Like I was talking earlier, it's sort of an odd collaboration, if you will. So what we got is You Should Be Dancing, Night Fever, Tragedy, Shadow Dancing, More Than a Woman. So they got together with the Bee Gees, and they're basically calling this project the DGs. And then what they did is some live acoustic tracks under the DGs, but Foo Fighters material. So, kind of a unique compilation. But I wasn't really the biggest fan of it. I mean, I was never really a fan of disco, so, I could leave it. But honestly, you can't fault them for trying something different. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing I ever heard. And then the other one I got to talk about, 2022, they did a project called Dream Widow, which it's sort of like a movie soundtrack. It's kind of like a fantasy band, kind of like Spinal Tap was. And I like this album. This album's like pretty good. I highly recommend it. So it's supposedly Foo Fighters' heavy metal album. So you start off with Encino, you got the song Cold, then you got March of the Insane, The Sweet Abyss, Angel with Severed Wings. I think that's my favorite track off that comp. Then you got Come On You Faithful, Becoming, and the Lucarius de Embrus. So, yeah, definitely a good album here. Real heavy. I mean, if you like heavy Foo Fighters and old school sounding Foo Fighters, definitely check out Dream Widow. So Dream Widow, all it is a fantasy band and the soundtrack to Studio 666, which is, it's like a comedy slash horror, sort of like a combination. I never saw the movie, so I really can't judge how good it is or anything. But yeah, I definitely like the soundtrack from it for sure. So yeah, definitely recommend checking that out. So at the beginning of the video, I was so wrapped up in talking about Nirvana, I forgot to tell you how I got into Foo Fighters, how I first heard them. And I don't remember any particular time of first hearing them. I guess it was just like, you know, when they came out, hearing them on the radio all the time with their song This Is a Call. I think that's the first song I remember hearing from them. But I don't remember, like, any particular time I first heard them. They were sort of that band that, you know, like, I didn't rush out and pick up every album, but I got the first album from the Music Club later on, and then, like, the rest of them I got on download. But, yeah, all in all, I think they're a real solid band. And obviously I never got to see them live either, so no live experiences. But, okay, so getting to the end of it here. So, how do I rate the albums? We're just going to talk original albums here in the ratings. We're not going to talk about side projects anymore or anything like that. So let me see here. So we have 90s Foo Fighters. You know, obviously, I would call it like the grunge era Foo Fighters. So we're going to do 90s Foo Fighters. We're going to do 2000s Foo Fighters, which we have 3 albums in the 90s, 3 in the 2000s. We're going to do 2010s Foo Fighters. And why the hell not? We'll do 2020s Foo Fighters. We'll just go by the decade here. So, 90s Foo Fighters. I didn't hate the self-titled album. It's pretty good. Definitely heavy. But I didn't like it as much as The Color and the Shape. Great follow-up to the whole discography. I wish they would have made Baker Street like an original to the album. But no, that was a B-side. So, The Color and the Shape definitely comes out on top in that decade. And There's Nothing Left to Lose, not that I hated it. That's my least favorite that decade. Now, when we go to the 2000s, top, One by One. And my least favorite, probably In Your Honor. But, like I said, I didn't hate any of them. Now, moving on to the 2010s. I'm going to say, yeah, Wasting Light, I would say, was my favorite. The song Rope is heavy as hell. Love that song. And then, coming in last, Concrete and Gold. As far as the 2020s, and I don't know, this one's almost a toss-up. I liked both of them about equally. So yeah, that's kind of what I'll leave that at. But yeah, Foo Fighters, definitely awesome. If you haven't heard all their albums, I definitely recommend checking them out. So, what will we have for you next time? Something not as popular. They've been around a while, but they're not as popular. They've never been real radio friendly, at least in the States. But they're from Italy, and they have a female lead singer. So, yeah, tune in next time and find out who it is.